Good afternoon. I think it's time to start. This is a webinar about pdfaPilot 5, but most of it, if not all of it, is about one particular feature, the most important new feature in pdfaPilot 5, which has to do with email archiving. What I'll start with, and I have a presentation here, but I also want to show you some of these things in demo, of course. But what I'll start with here is by going over some of the new functionality in pdfaPilot 5. So let's start with an overview of the new features in pdfaPilot 5. The first one I already mentioned. As I said, there is now the possibility to convert email into valid PDF or valid PDFA files, and I have a number of slides on how exactly that works, why you would want to do that, and what some of the pitfalls with that are, and the solutions that are implemented in pdfaPilot 5. So that is where really we are going to look at for this webinar. Also new, and also in some environments very important, is the ability to now use adjustable reports or customizable reports. You know that if you work with pdfaPilot, you have the opportunity to get a report, a PDF report or an XML report or an HTML report that gives you an overview of the problems that are found in a particular document. Well, in pdfaPilot 5, there is a new type of report that is based on an HTML template, and that gives you the opportunity to customize that report exactly to your needs. And with customizing, we refer, of course, to the fact that you can change the look and feel of the report, changing the callas logo, for example, to your own logo, or changing the complete look and feel to the look and feel that you use in your company. But it goes much further than that. Because of the fact that this is based on HTML templates, you can really also influence the content of the report. And that means that, for example, you can strip a lot of the technical content away, and you can make something, you can create a PDF report that is much more user-friendly, talks to people on a much less technical level, which is often very important. This webinar is not long enough to go into all of the details of this new technology. It is also a relatively technical subject, but I do want to point you to something else. If you go to the support website for PEAS, there is a section on there that is called tutorials. And in that tutorial section, there are a whole list of recorded webinars that we've done in the past. And one of them I want to draw your attention to. This is a webinar that talks about PDF Toolbox, but as you perhaps know, the technology underneath Callas PDF Toolbox is very similar to the technology that you have in Callas pdfaPilot. And this fourth automation webinar that we've given a couple of weeks ago talks specifically about these new template reports or customizable reports. So if you want to know more about that, go have a look at that video. It takes about an hour, and it talks about how you can use this both in the desktop version of pdfaPilot, but also in the automated version, how you can create your own templates, what is possible and what is not possible, and so on. I would highly advise you to go look at the video if you have an interest in this subject. And of course, if you have questions afterwards, simply write us an email, and we will be happy to answer that. Also, something that is perhaps worthy of its own webinar is support for the new EPUB 3 standard. As you know, there was already support to save an EPUB file out of pdfaPilot, but this now is upgraded to support the new version 3 standard. Specifically for Germany, and even though this is an English language webinar, I still want to mention it because it's an interesting standard, is support for the release candidate. It's not final yet, but the release candidate for of something that is called Zugpferd. And Zugpferd is a German standard to create electronic invoices, but still store all of the information in those invoices that are needed for further processing. So specifically what you get is a PDF file that is of course, very easily readable by everyone, but inside the PDF is the XML information that you need to work with that invoice in an electronic way, which is very similar, as you'll see, to the way you can treat emails and can convert emails with pdfaPilot 5 as well. So interesting, perhaps more for Germany than for the rest of the world at this point, but I have no doubt that this is something that we'll see coming in other parts of the world as well. And then because this is a new version of pdfaPilot, a new major version, we always take the opportunity to also include a number of changes that are more under the hood, if you want. And in pdfaPilot 5, in this version, what you have is a completely new font engine that is important because it does detection of a number of problems better, but it's even more important in archival workflows because of the fixing capabilities that are much better as well. So a lot of the problems that you find in PDF that have to do with font can be better handled with this new font engine. Next to that, there is an Adobe transparency flattening and rendering engine inside of pdfaPilot that has been upgraded to the latest version as well, which gives much higher quality of documents at a similar size. So without increasing the size of archived documents, you'll still see that you'll get a better visual result in those documents. So that's important as well. There are better color transformations in pdfaPilot 5, and then there is overall you have performance improvements for process plans. If you don't know what process plans are, they are similar to what happens in profiles. They can contain checks and fixes to be applied on PDF documents, but especially in archival workflows, they're very useful because they allow conditional processing. So you can do things like try to convert this to a PDF-A file, and if that doesn't work, then use this fallback mechanism to try and fix the problems that you encounter. So you have some of the performance improvements in that area in this new version as well. Okay, then going into the meat of this this webinar, emails and conversion of emails into PDF or PDF documents. The first question that sometimes comes up is, why would you want to do that? And well, I think it's pretty obvious if you look at document workflows, or if you look at the way people work and communicate in companies, that email is becoming an ever bigger part of how we convey information. And that means that some of the important business information that you see at companies is only available in emails. And storing that information, in many cases, together with the attachments that come with it, is very important if you want to be able to archive the complete business communication that you have with someone. So that's why you would want to do that. And if you look at the different parts in an email, some of the complexity of archiving emails, and that's reflected in some of the very complex solutions that you find on the market, some of the complexity comes from the fact that you have different parts in an email that you need to archive, and all of them typically are very important. You have the header information that perhaps is equivalent to a letterhead if you want, the address and who it's assigned to, who it comes from, what the date is, and so on. All of that information is more metadata than it is actual content, but it's very important to understand what the total conversation is about and between which parties. So that needs to be retained in some way. The body of the email, of course, is important. There too, you have the complexity that it's possible to have different versions of that same body information, even in the same email. You can have a textual version and you can have a full layout HTML version. And those two needn't even be the same. In many very complex HTML emails, the text simply says, if you can't read this, and give a link to a website where you can read the full or view the full HTML version. So you can have different information in the different types of body you can store in an email. And then you have attachments, of course, which in many cases are as important or even more important than the original email content. And then the question is how you deal with that. And of course, an attachment to an email can be just about anything from a simple document to an application to something that is executable to an archive with a bunch of different stuff in it. So while it's more and more obvious that you want to archive emails, the question very quickly becomes, how do you integrate that archiving in a broader archiving of a document workflow? The problem on top of that is that there isn't really a standard email format. Perhaps with documents we're a little bit spoiled because so much of our communication happens in a limited amount of relatively well standardized document formats, whether it's PDF hopefully or things like Microsoft Word and Excel. It's a relatively limited amount of formats. And by now we kind of know how to handle them. In emails, the situation is a little bit different. On the server side, most of these servers and systems deal with email content in a very proprietary way. There might not even be an individual email file. It might just be part of a larger system, or it might be very volatile as it's being transferred from one server to another. If you look at an email client, what we all use in our system to read emails, then the situation is at least a little bit better. Email clients typically are working with either a database or they're working with individual files. And the most common files in that sense are EML or EMLX, and then MSG, which is used by Outlook, for example. These formats are sometimes proprietary. The Outlook format, for example, is proprietary. It can be understood, but it's also, just as Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, it's not a perfect format to archive stuff in because there is no guarantee you'll be able to read this even 10 years from now. There is no guarantee that Microsoft will not have evolved to a future format breaking compatibility. Wouldn't be the first time that that happens. So there isn't really a standard format in what is already used by email clients today. But of course, something like pdfa offers a very nice solution. The advantages for pdfa for email archival are largely the same as the advantages that you already have in using pdfa for document workflows. It's a complete format, which means you have everything embedded in there. Fonts, all of the metadata can be embedded in there. There is a limitation to what you can do with password protection and encryption, so you can be sure that you can access this information. It's well defined, whether it's color, text, images, form fields, interactive stuff, comments. All of the ways to embed that in a pdfa file, all of those ways are very well defined, and they are also limited to, in the sense that you can only embed certain things in pdfa files. You can only have content in pdfa files if it can be defined in a non-ambiguous way, and you can be sure that it is readable again 10 years or 50 years or 100 years from now. But you still, in pdfa, have the possibility to use things like external links. You have the ability to use digital signatures. So you really, in a pdfa file, have all of the ingredients there in order to be able to store a full email message, all of the information that comes in an email message in a pdfa file. What are the possibilities? Well, that depends very much on the flavor of pdfa that you're interested in. The original pdfa standard, PDF A1, does not allow the embedding of file attachments in a PDF file, which means that if you have an email and there are a number of attachments to that email, there is no way to actually store those attachments as attachments in the pdfa document. But what you can do is convert all of them to PDF and then simply append them to the end of the PDF for the email message itself. In PDF A2, the standard was opened up so that file attachments were acceptable, but all file attachments, all files that are stored in a PDF A2 file had to be PDFA files themselves. So this gives you the opportunity, if you receive an email message with, for example, a Word document attached to it, to convert that Word document into a PDFA file and then store it inside of the PDFA file for the email message itself. So the PDFA that you create from the email starts acting as a container to also put the attachments in this case in PDFA form as well. And then pdfa3 is the latest version of the standard, also the most open version of the standard, where you can not only embed PDFA files inside a PDFA file, but you can also embed all other file formats, which gives me the opportunity to store an attachment also in its original format inside of a PDFA. So that is the most flexible way of dealing with that. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'll show you one screenshot and then we'll start playing with the software a little bit. What that means is that when an email arrives, I can ask pdfaPilot to convert the EML message or MSG message. So the only requirement that you have to be able to use pdfaPilot is that you have a system where at a certain point in the email workflow, you can get a message as EML or as MSG. Well, it will convert that message into a PDFA file. That's the screenshot that you are seeing here, is a PDFA file open in Adobe Acrobat. And it will then transform all of the information that we mentioned that is available in emails so that it can be stored inside of that PDFA file. And rather than talking about this much more, I'm going to go into my Windows environment, and I want to show you what that means. So what I have here is pdfaPilot 5. I'm simply running this on Windows because it's a very common workflow for archival to use Windows, especially if you also want to do conversion from Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and PowerPoint into PDF. But of course, all of these things would also work on the Mac. But what I've done here is I've opened up pdfaPilot 5, and then when I go to the switchboard under Office, there used to be simply this Office to PDFA button that converts regular Office files to PDFA files. Well, now you have email to PDF, and if I click on that, I can choose a document. So I can simply say browse and then go to the document that I want to convert, and I've put some of these on my desktop. I'll start with something that is a simple text-based email file, so simply that I've received in, for example, this one comes from Apple Mail, but you can take something that is in Apple Mail or in Outlook and simply drag it onto your desktop, for example. Let me select that. So that's the email message that I want to convert. Then I can choose how I want to convert it into a PDFA, and that talks about the visual representation of the PDF file that this will create. So if everyone in your organization works with Outlook, it would be it would be obvious to select Outlook as the visual format, because then it would look exactly the same as people are used to within Microsoft Outlook. And then I select what I want to do with that email message. And you see that there is a whole list of ways you can convert that email into either a regular PDF file or a PDF A1, 2, or 3. And most of the changes, most of the, not changes, most of the differences, if you look at PDF A, have to do with how attachments are handled. As I already mentioned, when you use PDF A1, you can only add the attachments as additional pages. Once you go to A2, you also gain the opportunity to embed the attachments as a PDF A file. And once you go to A3, you can either embed them as original, you can embed them as PDF A, or you can embed them as both the original and PDF A. And I want to show you a little bit how this works. So what I'll do is I'll do something very simple. We'll choose the most powerful option here, and I'm simply going to take this file and then convert that. And that went very fast. I'm going to save this on my desktop. There we go. And what I want to show you is how this would now look if I open it up. So that gave me a PDF file. If I now open it up in Acrobat Reader, for example, then you can see that it tells me that this file is compliant to the PDF-A standard, which means Reader opens it in a read-only mode. You can also see that it gives me something that resembles how this document, how an email would look in Outlook. So I have this header where it lists from whom this email comes, where it was sent to. I have the subject of the email. If I look at the files that are embedded inside of this PDF, then we make this a little bit wider. You can see that the original email message, the EML message, has been stored inside of the PDF that was created. And that's important because if, say, 10 years from now, you come to the conclusion that you shouldn't have archived everything as PDF A1, it would have been better to do it as PDF A3, for example, then you could still extract the original EML message out of these PDF files and then reconvert them again. So you have the option to take the original email file and embed that in the PDF-A file that was created, and then you have, this is a regular text-based email, so you simply have the email text that was in there. So not very spectacular. It simply takes the text email and converts that into a valid PDF-A document. Now, let me return, and what we'll do is we'll go look at an email that is a little bit more interesting. This is, again, an EML file but this time not a text-based file, but an HTML-based email message. And if I open that up and I leave everything else unchanged, we'll do the same conversion now. Now, I said that it makes sense to use Outlook format if everyone in your organization uses Outlook. These choices that you have here mean that you have a choice to determine what the visual representation of that email will be. The email that you just saw open in Reader looks the way it does because I have selected Outlook as the conversion template. These templates are the same HTML to PDF templates that I already talked about as one of the new features for pdfaPilot 5 during pre-flight. I can simply go in and I could make a copy of this template that I will now use in my organization and then change the way that conversion is done. This offers all kinds of, again, it's a slightly more technical topic, but it offers all kinds of interesting functionality. For example, if you want a specific stamp on all of the emails that are archived to indicate that they come from your archive or were received in your company, or you want to add the date, or you want whatever information you want to add to emails as they are archived, could be simply inserted into that template that we've selected, and that would determine what the resulting PDF file would look like. In the meantime, I've asked it to do that conversion, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to save that on my desktop, and we'll go look at how this looks in Reader. Again, I end up with a PDF-A file. You can see that I now have the same HTML view or the same visual view of the email, exactly the same as I would normally see it inside of Apple Mail or Outlook inside of an email application. So even if you have very complex HTML emails with a bunch of images and all kinds of other formatting in it, then pdfaPilot will still convert that in exactly the same visual appearance in the PDF-A file. So that is preserved as well. Any content that needs to be gotten from the internet, say that your email references an image that lives on the internet somewhere, that will be downloaded from the internet and stored inside of the PDF-A file. So you really get a self-contained representation of that email message, even if it's an HTML email message to begin with. And also interesting, where you have links in the email, you also have the same links in the PDF-A document. So if I click on this link, Reader asks me, are you sure you want to open up this website link? If I say allow, it will open up that site inside of a browser, and I go to exactly where this email linked to. Of course, there is no guarantee that 50 years from now that link will still actually work, but the hyperlink information is at least maintained inside of the created PDF-A file. So that part of the information is there. Let me close that. That was example number 2. And then, of course, we need to look at what happens with email attachments as well, because that's the most complex part of this business. I'll go back and let me select my second example here. Now, this is the same email that we looked at before, so it's a relatively simple text-based email message. But in this case, what I did was I added one PDF file as an example, not a PDF-A, a regular PDF file as an example, as an attachment. And I also added an Excel spreadsheet as an attachment. So we now have the email message, and then we have 2 attached documents, a spreadsheet and a PDF. I'm still going to do the Outlook version, and I'm going to ask to embed both the original version of the attachment and a PDF-A converted version of the attachment. So let me execute that. This will take slightly longer. Why? Because I have these additional documents attached, and these documents need to be converted into PDF. You can already see what's going on here, but I will do the same thing and save this so that we can open it in Reader. Save that again, close it here, and we're done with pdfaPilot. This is the email, the PDF-A file that was created. You can see it's 33 megabytes in this case. If I open that up in Reader, I get a visual representation that is very similar. You can see that it says attachments, and I now have links to the attachments. And if I open up this attachment pane, I now have 5 documents that are attached or embedded inside of this pdfa file. The first one is the same we had before. That's the original email message. The second one is the original version of the PDF file that was embedded inside of my email, and a version that was converted to PDFA. And then I have the same for the other attachments. I had a spreadsheet in there, so I can still go back to Excel now by simply clicking on that embedded spreadsheet, in which case reader asks me, do you want to save this or open it up in Excel? And if I open it up in Excel, I have the original Excel file as it was attached to the incoming email. And I also have a converted PDF version of that same Excel spreadsheet. And it's always the same. Of course, there is no guarantee that 5 years from now or 50 years from now you will be able to read this spreadsheet. Microsoft Excel might no longer exist, or it might not be compatible with the version that is stored in here. That's why you also store the converted PDFA version, but at least this gives you the opportunity to store that original file inside of the PDFA. And if you can go back to it at some point, well, this gives you the opportunity to do that. So you save the maximum amount of information inside of that document. The other thing that is in there, and I will show you that in pdfaPilot, if I reopen that email or PDFA version of the email in pdfaPilot, I talked about metadata. You can see that there are a number of bookmarks that are inserted in here. But if I go to Tools and Explore Metadata, which will show me all of the metadata that I have in this particular document, PDFA document, by simply scrolling to the bottom here, I have a section that has a callas software schema attached to it. Well, this contains all of the original header information that was included in that email. So there is no part of the email message that is lost. The header information that is available is stored inside of the metadata, the XMP metadata inside of the PDFA. It's also used, or some parts of it are used, to generate this visual appearance of the header as you're used to from something like Outlook or Apple Mail or Google Mail. The body of the email is, of course, converted into a PDFA document or in a PDF document and is inserted there. And then the original email message and or all of the attachments in the format that you want, either the original format or the converted PDF document, all of those are stored as file attachments inside of that PDFA document. So this gives you a way to take an email message, EML or MSG, and to convert that manually, in this case, into a PDFA document with all of the information preserved as much as possible. Of course, if you then look at callas pdfaPilot server or the command line version, that is capable of doing the same things, which allows you to have a hot folder where you drop these EML files in, or the mail server drops these EML files in, and then converts all of these email files on the fly. Go back to my presentation and simply click on the last slide, because that concludes what I wanted to say. There were some questions. Let me go over those because I think they're relevant for multiple people in this case. There was a question about Lotus Notes and whether that is supported. I think there is a difference between what the way pdfaPilot implements email archiving and the way some other applications implement email archiving. What we've seen is that some other applications really integrate themselves with a mail server, which means that all of the email that comes in or that goes out is intercepted, and then there is a conversion done in that way. And what you then see is that in many cases, the integration of such a technology becomes bothersome because you really have to integrate with a mail server. There are plenty of different mail server technologies out there, so you have to integrate with all of them, and every 3 months they have a new version, which may break that integration. So that becomes a very difficult technology to sometimes install, integrate, maintain. What we've chosen to do with pdfaPilot is different. pdfaPilot does not integrate with a mail server. The only thing it offers you is the ability to watch a hot folder, and just as it does with PDF documents or Office documents, it watches that folder and it converts everything that comes in based on the rules that you give it. So any EML or MSG file that comes into that hot folder is picked up, converted into PDFA, and ends up in an output folder. So which mail servers are supported? Well, any mail server that is able, or any environment where you are able to, in an automatic way, set things up so that all of the emails or certain emails are moved into a folder, can very easily use this pdfaPilot implementation to do email to PDFA. Of course, that means that usually there will be some setup to do in your organization, but once that setup is done, pdfaPilot has the very simple and very quick task to pick up these email messages and simply convert them into PDFA. In many cases, you will then have an archival system that will accept these PDFA files. And because of all the metadata, well, because of the fact that it is PDFA to begin with, and because of all the metadata that is inserted into that PDFA file, that then makes it very easy to also implement other functionality on top of that, such as searching for particular emails or searching by email addresses, or because all of the metadata that came in with the email is actually transcoded into XMP, and XMP is typically already supported in such document management systems. Does it adjust PDF page size based on email formatting? Well, basically what it will do is it will use that HTML template that I talked about to do the conversion from the email message into a PDF. So it basically will follow whatever you do in that template. If you set up a template where there is a fixed page format of an A4, for example, or a letter document, then it will use that page format, and it will put the content on that format, which is not very different, by the way, than what would happen, and that was the goal. It's not very different from what would happen if you today would open up an email in either Apple Mail or Outlook or anything else and say save as PDF or print. That would give you the exact same splitting in different pages as you will see here. But again, the important part is that while there are 4 good templates included with pdfaPilot already, so you don't have to change these templates if you don't want to, you do have the ability to change them if you feel that need. And again, that those templates that are used are the HTML-based templates that I pointed to that webinar about. Okay, so if you have any additional questions, then now would be a really good time to ask them. That's about what I wanted to cover in this webinar. As I said in the beginning, this focused mainly on the conversion from email into PDFA. While we know that there is a wider range of new features implemented in pdfaPilot 5, we firmly believe that this email to PDFA conversion is an important one, which is why we spent the majority of the time in this webinar to talk about that. We believe that the pdfaPilot makes it possible to do this conversion in a very quick and a very flexible way, and that this at least gives you a solution, or finally gives you a solution to not only handle Office documents and other PDF documents that you have to archive, but that this also gives a very elegant way to archive all of the emails that you get in, and have one consolidated archive with all of the business information that you need to put in that archive. Seems like there are, seems like there is one additional question about attachment formats. Yes, the main flexibility that has been built in around email attachments is what to do when when certain formats are not supported. If you have a Word file that is attached to an email, then of course pdfaPilot can convert that into PDF-A and then embed it. The question is, what happens if you have, for example, an XML file where there is no standard conversion from XML to PDF-A? In that case, typically what will happen is that the XML file will be embedded as the original format, and there will not be a PDF-A version of that attachment. If, of course, you ask pdfaPilot to convert to PDF-A2, then it has no other choice at that point to fail the conversion, because it will not be able to put that XML file in the converted PDF-A document. There is no conversion possible from that XML file, or an .exe file if that is attached, or any other of those less common file formats. So you have to carefully look at what you want to do in your workflow, whether you want to save the original version of the attachments that are attached, and then what you want to do if there are attachments that could not be converted into PDF-A, and then realize that PDF-A3 in this particular case will give you the most flexibility in working with those, because it does allow to archive or to embed other file formats inside of the original PDF-A document. Good, that's what I wanted to cover today. Let me thank all of you for attending this webinar. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to drop us an email or give us a call. We will be more than happy to help you with that. If you go to the Callas software website, just as always, go to downloads, and in downloads there are the new pdfaPilot 5 versions to try out. You have fully functional trial versions of the desktop version, and then also, if you scroll down a little bit, the server products and the command line products on all of the different platforms. Of course, there are still a number of differences based on platform, the same as what we had with previous versions of pdfaPilot. A conversion from Word or Excel to PDF, for example, is possible on Mac or on Windows. There is no Microsoft Office version for Linux or Unix. So if you want to use Linux or Unix for these types of conversions as part of an email to PDF-A workflow, you will have to use OpenOffice and instruct pdfaPilot to convert Office files with OpenOffice. But that's, like I said, exactly the same as for the previous version of pdfaPilot, so there isn't really a difference there. Okay. That's it for me. Thank you very much for attending. I will see you again on a later webinar, I am sure, and have a great day.